All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the 444th edition of the New York Comics and Picture Story Symposium. This is a weekly series founded by Ben Catcher over a decade ago. This calendar has been curated by Ben, the cartoonist and animator Lily Correa, and myself. My name's Austin English. We are funded with a generous grant from the Will and Ann Eisner Foundation, which allows us to pay speakers for their time, pay them an honorarium for doing this, while also keeping entry to these talks, putting them on online without a paywall, without a Patreon subscription or anything like that. It allows us to make those things free. So we're very grateful for that. Um, I could not be more excited for tonight's guest, Carol Tyler, who I don't want to embarrass our speaker, but I think Carol is easily one of our greatest living North American cartoonists, and I doubt many people would disagree with me. And this book in particular, her most recent book, the Ephemerata, I should have asked her the exact pronunciation of it, but I hope I did an okay job, is really, really a special book. I believe truly, it's a word that gets thrown around, but truly a masterpiece of a book. A book not like one I have not read in comics before. And one of the things I've been trying to do with booking guests for my part of the symposium is I think anyone who gets very, very involved in comics and loves comics to a great degree and they're a big part of your life, I think at times you'll question your faith in the beauty of the medium to a degree, and you'll want something to justify your faith in it. And I think last season we had Ivana Lagbe on for his book Misery of Love, and I felt that that was a book that really proved proved how beautiful this art form at its absolute highest can be. And I would say that's incredibly true of this work as well. I first became aware, I'd seen bits and pieces previously, but I first became aware of Carol's work in a substantial way in the mid-aughts with her collection Late Bloomer, which I just thought was one of the most you know, cartoonists I think often focus a lot on crafts, and Carol Tyler's craft is as strong as anyone else's. But I think a lot of cartoonists um, eschew emotion and sometimes aren't as much experts in portraying emotion as they are with drawing very well. And I felt that Late Bloomer was one of the most um, distilled forms of a truly poetically emotional book that I'd ever read. And her subsequent work, Soldier's Heart, and now this work, really have expanded on that and carried through on that line. So I am going to be, what I'm doing tonight is I'm just going to do a live interview with Carol. I've selected 10 images from her book to um, to ask her questions about. And she's in her studio. I think, has some things lying around in her studio that she also wants to show the audience. Um, and so that'll be great. And then what we also want, one of the key ideas about the symposium in the way that it was founded originally, is we really like a unity between audience and speaker. So if you are in the audience and you have a question, but you're worried that your question doesn't make sense or might not go anywhere, we want to hear that question. Do not hesitate to ask a question. And the way you can do it is in the chat. There's a chat box underneath the screen. You can write your question in the chat and you can indicate that you want me to read your question to Carol after I finish my interview with her, or that you want to read it yourself. You want to say it out loud and we can put you on camera so you can speak directly to Carol. But we cannot encourage you to do that enough. So I'm going to read a brief bio of Carol and then I'm going to start asking her some questions. Let me bring this up. So, born in Chicago in the 1950s, Carol Tyler is a cartoonist who bridged underground and alternative comics with her debut in Weirdo magazine in 1987. Collections such as The Job Thing and Late Bloomer followed. In 2015, Fantagraphics published Soldier's Heart, her Eisner Award-nominated biography of her father, tracing his return from World War II and how his trauma impacted his family. Fab4 Mania, from Fantagraphics, which was published in 2018, based on her 1965 diary, is about her teenage obsession with the Beatles. In recent years, she has taught sequential art at the University of Cincinnati's College of Design, Architecture, Art, and Planning. She is a CXC Master Cartoonist and a Slate Studio Prize winner. In 2023, Married to Comics, a documentary about Tyler's life with her husband and fellow cartoonist Justin Green, who passed in 2022, won rave reviews. And we now have this work, which I believe was published at the end of 2025, if I'm not mistaken. And I am excited to ask Carol some questions about this. Let me pull up some images to start things off with. So, Carol, I wanted to ask you this work, if people are unfamiliar with it, or maybe haven't heard of it before, although I imagine many people in the symposium's audience have already read it. For those that haven't, this is a work about a time in Tyler's life when many people that she was close to passed away, and the structure, the shape, the way that she explored, I don't want to say dealing with the grief of those losses, but just the process of that grief, the kind of in a way a map of going through that grief, and distilled into this 200 plus page book. I wanted to start off by asking you, Carol, I've pulled this slide from the book, and here you have the text reads, many folks turn around once they realize the topic up there is death. Understandable. Nobody wants to think about it. We all just want to enjoy our lives. I get that. And people are saying, no, why ruin my day? No. I'm kind of wondering, in a way to start out talking about this book, um, this work is a focus on you responding, not just responding, but these deaths happening in your life and your response to them in many varied forms. I kind of wonder, prior to the events of this book, where you were at with the experience of grief, the experience of responding to death, how you might have prior to the very deaths that happened on top of each other, how your feelings about loss and grief were prior to the events of this book, and how you felt them changing as you entered into the events of this book.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you for your great intro. Um, and welcome everybody for coming. Thank you all for taking the time. Uh, Grief, it's kind of a thing that people talk about now a lot. Yeah, I see it popping up in culture everywhere. But back in the time when I got started, I was just coming out of writing the Soldier's Heart, which was, you'll never know, 3-part thing that morphed into Soldier's Heart. So there's a lot of facing, through my dad's story, there was a lot of addressing how hurt he was by loss from his warfare, and what the causes of, like, what made him so bottled up and upset. It turned out that it was civilian warfare that got to him, and it was dealing with the mundane. And you talked about, they were given an order to go, and if that meant plowing over a bunch of people, you'd have to do it. And he said he could hear them under the wheels and stuff being crunched. And I thought, how can you come back and do the 50s, Dad, after all that? And the same thing with my mother. She lost her child. So I saw them. I was raised by two people who were completely and utterly informed and affected by loss. And the way that they handled it was to kind of just get back down to work and not worry about that, but they were emotionally guarded. So I don't know. You hear about somebody dying, and I say that in the front part of the book. It's like, oh, gee, how'd they die? Because I want to avoid that. I don't want to do that. Oh, you drank too much. Okay, don't drink, etc. So you go through life, especially when you're younger, thinking about if you know how to avoid it, then you'll avoid it, because we all want to stay alive. But it wasn't until I went through this. So my I guess my what I'm to answer your question, my thoughts about it were, I never had to do any heavy grieving. My parents lived to be in their 90s, and nobody super close to me had gone through an illness and then died. But then it started to happen, especially since I was caregiving, not all the time, but I was at least more engaged and more involved uh, with my parents' life towards the end. Although they had helpers and stuff like that, but still, as I say in the book, I had to get in there and jump in the shower with my sister. I mean, that was who was going to. You just find out that at the end game comes down to a certain type of person and a certain group of people. So it's no longer abstract. You know, that's my dog. Um, she's going to do that for a while. She has a lung tumor.
Oh,
Doing caregiving for her right now.
oh,
Um, but one of the things that was shocking to me was I did a lot of caregiving and it didn't save their lives. And so that was like, wait a minute. I've been caregiving. If you're a parent and stuff like that, you're going to raise a kid, or in a relationship, you make repairs all the time. And I felt like I was problem solving my parents' situations and making sure they had better food or taking care of this issue or that issue or whatever it was. But in the end, they died. And then I put on the same thing that my parents did. It's like, well, okay, I just got to keep moving. I remember one time I was with my dad we were flying down a freeway in California. They came to visit me. The whole family was in the car and I was driving. And suddenly there was a cardboard box, huge cardboard box, right in the lane. I couldn't get around it. There it was. And I went, oh shit, what do I do? And my dad said, just keep going. And he did, and they did, and everybody, you just have to kind of keep going. And then you find yourself, especially in this case, it wasn't my parents so much because they were older. You expect these old birds to croak, but and they had a good long life. And my dad especially, he'd had cancer 20 years earlier. He beat the odds. But my sister, that's the one that got to me. It's like, she did everything right. She ate good food. She exercised. She was kind and good. So it's like, that was cruel. That was,
right.
that's when I really started to grieve hard. What did that mean? We had plans. Damn it. We were supposed, she'd have her, I'd be sitting there looking at her planner, watching it thin out, and then seeing future dates that she would never meet, like a meeting, or we're going to go do this or that. And that was just like, it really. And then the way I talk about in the book, the way my family responded. Some of the family members, I guess they couldn't handle it. That's why they took off. They don't speak to me. One of the shocking things I found out is that a lot of times when you have death in the family can often fracture apart. Maybe it was the parents that we were all hanging in there for, or, it was just shocking to me how the whole Tyler family just exploded into different places. And my own family, Julia left. Okay, we want our kids to grow up and leave. That's true, but she did come back home, but then she left. And she went with this guy, and I had no access to her anymore. And it was like she was gone.
Right.
So there's just too much like uh, what was presence was absence, and that's what I had to deal with.
Well, in the book, you are in all the events, you are present at the central, at the center of everything, and you're very involved in caring for people as they are sick, and you're very involved in the process of after they passed. You're not ignoring any aspect of this, and a lot of people around you in the book are are having very different responses, if we can put it that way. And this might be a kind of general question, but because you wrote a book on this subject, are you surprised as you went through it, um, that we still have such a just all of us? I mean, your response to these tragedies was very active, and I find in the book admirable and compelling, but you still take on a lot of pain because it's not shared with other people. So I wonder if you, as you were going through, if you asked yourself, why do we still, this is a universal thing that everyone will have to deal with at some point in their lives, and we still don't seem to have a way to deal with these things. We don't, it's a tragedy for almost everyone. And we don't seem to know how to deal with this event. Did that question come up to you as you were you mentioned it as an aside in the book that we still don't know how to talk about this stuff. And now that you're on the other
No,
side
as a
of it,
culture, we don't.
yeah.
Yeah. As a culture, we
Why do you
don't
think
know.
that
We
is?
don't want to deal with our finality. We don't want to deal with the end of the life. Um, I mean, it's unpleasant, because we don't know where we're going. And all of these big questions. That's what I'm writing the next part of the book, the second book, because there's a two-part. But that's part of what I address is like, how come this is? Jung says people have a just they just believe they're going to they believe in living, and then so death comes as a shock. But the Buddhist monks will tell you death is the reality, and I know that because I tell you part of why um, I think I was able to do this is um, I kind of I don't want to say this really because I'm not like one of those people that goes into a cave and meditates or something, but I have embraced Buddhist thinking. I think that being able to look at my mom and say, well, she's dead now, um, and having been emotionally prepared through this thing called the meditation on death that I did with Monk Sock, years ago. Um, just the nature of reality, all the things that they teach you about mindfulness and then being here and all that. I actually went through a training and I went through a program and I took 5 lifetime precepts and I committed. They gave me a name. My name is Sangamita. But what that means is when they asked me how I would go forth with my Dharma, knowledge of Dharma, I said, I'm going to forget it. It'll either be in the work or not. I'm
Right.
here. I'm a girl from the Midwest. I'm not going to go live in a temple somewhere. It doesn't work that way. I adopt the thinking, but I'm going to forget it. I'm in it for understanding how we are, why we are, what we can do with this life, because I understand it's transient and temporary. I get that. Um, and I can see that people are avoiding dealing with it because it's not pleasant. But if your mind is not prepared, if you don't prepare yourself mentally, either through prayer, meditation, or some sort of connection or reflection or whatever, if you honestly think you're going to be able to cruise through and just live forever, it ain't going to happen. It can't happen. That's not the nature of reality. So I'm very happy that I had been prepared. I studied with His Holiness. I went to some teaching trainings. I met him. the Dalai Lama. This was all in the O's. Before I started Soldier's Heart. I studied with a Zen master. So I did my due diligence in terms of trying to understand what the heck that is. I was too overwhelmed with the patriarchy of the Judeo-Christian traditions. Although there's a lot of patriarchy no matter where you go with religion. But the thinking is we have this tool and we have this response. They work in tandem. How can I maximize that? Because I'm trying to communicate something. What is it that I'm trying to say to people and why? I've always tried to explain something going on, circumstance. In the case of my parents and Soldier's Heart, I really wanted people to understand that trauma can be handed down. And so don't take your garbage and give it to your kids. There's ways around that. It's in your vested interest, and it works out best if you don't. The goal is to get to happiness and be at peace with things. There's so much shit that flies around at us in this life. I also I came into appreciating beauty in a way I never had before. You avoid death, you avoid facing these big issues, you're going to miss a lot of beauty. And I'm not saying I'm morbidly fascinated with cemeteries or something like that. That's not it. I totally get why people memorialize and stuff like that. You can do what you want. You want to pay somebody to make a big angel? Go ahead. Not everybody's going to respond that way, but like when my sister was like the day that she was told she had the stage 4, I knew what it was. And yet in that room with those Kleenex boxes and the way my brother-in-law left the room and the light coming in the windows, there was so much beauty all around. And I thought, I can be present for my sister in this moment, but I can also be present to what's going. We were in an atrium waiting, and I put that in the book. So I always am open, and I look for. I don't close the door on anything that's possibly happening. Well, dreadful and beautiful can go together. They can occur simultaneously.
Yeah.
And I have opened the world of beauty. Like I said, has opened for me in ways I could have never imagined before. Did that answer the question? I forgot the
Yeah, yeah,
question.
that's an incredible answer. It's funny you mentioned Buddha in the book and you talk about it and you say, well, but after all, Buddha was never he didn't have a sister and he didn't have so I
He
it's
didn't have kids.
yeah, yeah, he didn't have kids. You bring him in, but then you also keep him at bay at the same time.
Well, he said just he's a human. He's not divine. He just said decide for yourself. Look, I had some insight. Here it is. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
He was very adamant about that. And so I think about, all right, so what I can take, if he's saying take it, I can take parts. Uh, None of these great leaders, if you have to stay up all night with a kid with strep throat, it goes on for 3 nights and you haven't slept. There's some insight I've got about that
Right.
that I can't find in religion. So my nose is snotting. No, I have a real seat of pants practical, I guess, Midwest girl Catholic thing. Um, that's one of the things that Justin and I had in common. We were very, ultimately, we were very Chicago. We grew up in the 50s in Chicago. So a lot of stuff a lot of our collisions of sameness and being in sync had to do with just adopting kind of those values. Just understanding that whole working class thing, although he wasn't working class at all. Oh, he was a rich kid. I don't want to talk about Justin tonight. I will, but he came from a very, very, very wealthy family, and I did not. So, but we still found ways to connect.
Let me ask you, let me show another image. And I have this one here. This is early on in the book, and you're kind of beginning your journey on this terrain. This I was struggling with a way to describe this book to someone, and I was kind of saying that it was like poetic diagrams in a way at times, where there's almost images that are almost like graphs or diagrams, and the way you're traversing them, it's not graphs for information, it's graphs for something beyond information. And this is a beautiful moment where you come back into this bonnet of I believe it's your mother's bonnet. Is that
Great
correct?
grandmother, great
Great
grandmother.
grandmother's bonnet. I'm sorry. Yes. And
Yeah.
so I was kind of, when I got to this part, I was wondering how the book is, I think, the construction of it is highly complex, and I'm wondering how just the process of constructing this book, where you began. It goes into day-to-day events, it goes into day-to-day things that are happening with your daughter and her boyfriend, but that kind of happens way at the end of the book, and the sequences that resemble your true life. Um, are interspersed with this navigation of this zone of grief. And so I wonder where you began with this work and when it started becoming this specific construct. If maybe you began it and it was just going to be a traditional autobio book that reported the events and your reactions to them, or if it morphed into this, or if this was the intent from the start.
Well, what I wanted to do was I didn't want to have Soldier's Heart continued. Like what happened to those characters in that book? I really did want to talk about something. The experience of losing my sister was so profound, and I knew that if I just focused on her, um, I don't know, it didn't seem like it would be universal. How do I? That's always the fine line. You got people that I know, but if I used to tell my students, I don't care about your grandmother, and what that means is unless I can, if you're going to tell a story about your granny and it's so precious to you, but I don't get it, I don't, I don't get on board, then it's for you. So I knew I didn't want to just, and I didn't want to eulogize her in that way. I needed to fold her in, and then started to think, well, what am I trying to say? I did some research on death the same way I did research on World War II uh, when I did Soldier's Heart. And I thought, so much of it relies on either, um, what's that name? Kubler Ross, The Five Stages of Grief. There's like a shtick going on out there about,
Right.
well, I read Kubler Ross. I think I'm at stage 3. It's like, that's not it at all. So I just started through my little research and sitting with it. I sat with it. I wrote it. I wrote down everything and didn't like the voice. And then I wrote it again and then I blocked it up and I didn't like it. I thought, what's the thing? And it's like, because I'm not talking about how vacuous it felt. That was the most important thing. So the front part of the book is about wandering and wondering and feeling bad and just not functioning. Because that's exactly what happened. I mean, I could function, but emotionally, I could not function. I couldn't deal with things. And then when my daughter left, that grocery store sequence where I could see her, but I couldn't reach her
Oh,
because she
yeah.
was with that guy. Just, I said, those are the moments you have to figure out how to pull together. And then, so the first part is about that strangeness of that feeling where my head calved, and that all that really happened. That thinking I had a stroke and then having this vision. It's like, what is this? I never operated like that before. I never was one of those people that had that kind of imagination working. It was always, oh, I have something I want to communicate. But suddenly I had this vision and this sensation, and I wanted to understand that. Like, is this trying to lead me to speak in some way? I better I better think about that. I put that first so I can just say, you know what, death happens. And it left me in a different world. I went to a different place. And then the second part, I thought, why? Because this happened. People got sick and people died, and I served their needs. I couldn't stop the deaths. So death exists. It left me in a vacuum because these people died. And then the third part was, and I did it under these circumstances. These things were going on. There was an addict in the house. You know, there was trouble.
Yeah.
My friend down the street died. No, and people were stepping over her. Just like, ah. So now there's an acute awareness of like, now I did. Some people say my grandpa died, and it's sad, and you go to the funeral. But I need to go deal with the fucking drug dealer who wanted to kill me in the middle of my sister getting sick and dying. He wanted to kill my daughter. That doesn't happen to a lot of people. So I thought, probably should write
No.
about that. Fold that in. Just the difficult circumstances. And I also talk about the toll it took on me. I didn't come through this like, bravo, I think I'll write a book. I was wrecked by this whole experience. And it happened to come during my, when you get to a certain age, you lose your stuff and everything just kind of craps out. And I'm older now, I got wrinkles, I can't just go join it was just I just tried to convey that this getting into this level of grief at this time with this stuff going on after everything I did to try to make things better, and the outcome was still that the outcome was everybody died and I'm exhausted,
Right.
you know. But then Justin died as I was finishing up the book,
Well, that actually leads
and
to,
that's a whole no, that's a whole nother book.
yeah,
That had to become a whole nother.
that'll be and so it kind of leads into my next question where when these events are happening, I think longtime readers of your work might be surprised to realize that or I as a reader of Soldier's Heart, the book about your father, these events are happening as um as you are working on a book about him. And of course, the events of
Yeah,
Justin's passing happens, I gather, while you're working on this book that we're talking about now. So I guess that what I'd like to
right.
ask is, we have this moment where you're having these a real struggle with your father's treatment of your mother, and you say you're sick of it. It's he's not even doing the bare minimum. I've given him enough of my life. Hell, I even wrote that book about him. I'm done. And so. I just kind of just for you as an artist, how was it working on? I mean, Soldier's Heart is one of your most major works. How was it just the process of making art during this? It's you seem when you read this narrative, the idea that you're also working on this very substantial narrative, it's hard to imagine how you have the time, or the focus to do what you did. And I'm kind of just wondering what your cartoonist working life was like to complete that work. Because it's mentioned in you working on it is mentioned here, but the nuts and bolts of it, the process of making it, I mean, we see all the process of caring for people and responding to events. And we see Justin seated at a drawing table at times working on deadlines. But I just the how you made that major work in the midst of all this, I'd be very interested to hear about.
And teaching with
Auntie,
no classroom.
yeah.
No classroom. Um, I taught comics out in the hallway one semester. Um, I don't know. I write down. I take a lot of notes. I'm trying to think if I have anything here. Yeah, I do write things down. It was kind of the thesis of my exhibit at Dilly, Ireland, was that uh, okay, I'm reading here. The bonnet. Get hard assessment of what, where, what. Full of stuff. Hardly move. There's what's the purpose here? What am I supposed to do? So these are just wrote down some notes. I'm on call 24/7 for cartooning. I do cartooning 24/7. It's my life. I don't go on cruises. I don't go on vacations. I don't go to the grocery store. I don't give a damn how I look when I go to the grocery store. I'm at the grocery store because I'm actually writing a script, or I might do some gardening because I'm actually trying to work out some kind of nut thing. Or I might go out to the farm and remove a wall section and put in a something or other, electrical unit thing. And it freeing the mind from thinking about it then leads to the ability to find clarity. So it's like I have a sense of what the book has to be. And the schedule is I know what the deadlines are, like on this one here, by New Year's Eve or else. On this page here, it says this would have been not the one we just had the year before. I have to have the lettering redone on these following pages. You see how there's scratch out marks, and I'm doing things and making this checklist, and it's got to be done. It's work. Pages to do. I got to do the intro. I got to do the chapter heads. I got to do the regular pages. The pages 104 was missing. I didn't have that one done. 156. So, like with Soldier's Heart, if you look at that book, there's those 2 pages where there's an icky color, and I noticed because I went back and looked that the color is not the putrid color. It was supposed to be the color of bile and puke, but it turned out kind of a yellowish. 2 pages of my dad's crappy crap that I had to take to a special dump. When he was having chemotherapy, the lady said, "This is toxic stuff." And he said, "Oh, hell, I got toxic stuff. I don't know." Making a joke about it. And I told the story of Mr. Toxie and how I collected all his stuff and I took it to the place. And it was such a big deal. He saved this crap for years. And it was like, what is this? Why do you have to have this, Dad? It's like horrible shit. Mercury. We put it on our hands when we were kids. He'd say, "Come here, everybody, come here, kids." And we'd play with mercury, you know. Um, Asbestos. I used to make sculpture in high school with asbestos because we had a bag in the basement for plumbing. We put it around pipes, the boiler. Um, but in that story, I go back and I look at, because I forgot one, I go back and I look, and his stuff is cordoned off in a section way over on the other end of the acreage, and it's little tape across it, caution tape. And it just seems so sad. That's how I started Soldier's Heart, was with his pile of crap. And I actually, so it's like, okay, so now I'm going to talk about chemo. I'm going to talk about his thumbing his nose at things you're not supposed to do his whole life. Yeah, you're not supposed to smoke a cigar. Hell, he lived to be 96. Smoked a pipe, smoked cigars, smoked. He said he did it because when he was working with lead as a plumber, he didn't want the fumes. And he always had to have flame. So he'd have a cigar, you could get flame going and puff away. I mean, whether that's true or not, I don't know. So I find places to get in. So in this book, I just wanted to understand who those chlorins were. Why did that come? What those funeral workers?
Can you?
What was that? So I started
Yeah.
drawing them, and then I drew the part about my dad throwing the ashes all over the yard. And so it's like this.
Right.
Kind of look for what is the what are these things saying? Like I guess what I'm saying is I go into the places I know that that I could possibly grab a hold of, and then what does this have to do with anything? Now there are out of 200 something pages. How many is in that book? 246 or something? What's in? It
216
doesn't matter.
pages.
216. There's probably
Yeah,
about
216.
20 or 30 pages that just didn't cut the mustard. But I did them anyway. I did them thinking they might fit or something like that. And they, it's taking me off this way. Because at a certain point, you say, okay, I'm not just expressing myself. I'm trying to communicate something and exactly what it is. So in this case, what the hell am I trying to say here? So at the beginning, I wanted people to understand that I had looked at and examined the concept of loss thoroughly and tried to find all the places. I didn't do a comprehensive job, but just like what it was for me and how that it's out there. And the second part was, and I felt that way because this, so I had to figure out how to say, and the chapter head for the servant. And the servant, by the way, is my sister, not me. I
Mm,
served, but the true servant was my sister.
mm,
Yeah. So I had the garbage can lid and the bowl of soup because all I did was fend off bullshit and nurture.
right.
And then the bereft, the first chapter where I talk about grief fill and stuff, I'm kind of off balance. Kind of going back, kind of tilted going through here. It threw me off balance a little bit. And then the last big set was duplexity. That was our house, and I had to make it look like. Yeah, I did that because you have to be able to. Who's seeing what? I wanted to show the two floors, and people know that from Married to Comics. The two-floor operational method of a living. Justin and I were both driven by having to meet deadlines and do artwork, and so it actually turned out good to have a situation like this because once you get in the groove and you're doing your thing, I might not want to eat till like 10 o'clock, but he was a morning person. He had to wrap his stuff or do his thing or something like that different. We had different diets. I have a sensitive gut, so I don't eat. He would make the most ridiculous stuff to eat. Oh, I couldn't eat it. And he didn't clean his kitchen and stuff. Bless his heart and God
What
rest
kind of
his
food?
soul.
What kind
But
of food would he make?
uh,
What were some of those ridiculous meals that he would make?
oh, start with frying up an onion and then put some kind of tomato thing in there, but then also add. He's always boiling beets and then soaking his feet beet water. Don't ask me why. He would drink beets water. He would make these glop. We called it glop because he'd fry up some hamburger and then he'd put beans in it, but then he'd add something wrong, like ginger. you
Hmm.
know, you're either going Italian or you're going this direction. So you'd have the seasonings mixed up, and it'd be like, oh, this is awful. And then you'd add like I don't know, it's just crap. I hated it. I hated what Justin ate, but he was like he didn't care about that. I have to have certain food order. Um, that's okay, but he's a guy. He's gonna eat guy foods. You'd have a guy menu. Chick food.
I have four images here that I'd like to show that I in the book that I found particularly one thing that I hope people come away from the book. that's embedded in its narrative is just just in terms of the drawing in it, how beautiful the book as a whole, but certain images I found really incredible.
Okay.
And I'd like to show you 4 images and maybe just ask you to do some commentary on them, maybe how you worked on them
Oh
or
yeah.
what you were thinking when you made them. This is, I think, when things are one of the many moments in the book when there's quite a bit of pressure on you and you're responding to that. I just found this image and just the lettering here, everything. I think there's some cartoonists are very concerned with getting a facial expression absolutely correct and displaying emotion in that way. One thing I've noticed in your work is that the way characters lean and the way characters hold themselves on the ground and the way they carry themselves is how I get the emotion of like the emotion on their faces is a bit more broad at times, but the way they carry themselves on the page I find and in the image that I'll show after this it's often very devastating. And so I wonder how you felt about drawing this image and if you remember doing it and this kind of changing of the visual look of things that you do throughout the book. Um, if you could just talk about this
Okay.
image.
Um, well, this is, nausea is the worst. I don't wish that on anybody ever. I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy. But you feel unsettled. It comes in waves. Nausea does. Um, you're off. You're just off. And I use the architecture of the panel of the page. I'm very aware of comics rules of, like, you're going to make a page and you're going to have some things are going to happen and it leads from up here to down there and stuff like that. You're going to go to the next page and turn the page and all of that. So I really wanted to I didn't want to do a Peter Bag vomit because it wasn't adolescent vomit. I don't remember what comes ahead of here. I think I was driving and I got queasy and I had to throw up in my
Yes.
purse or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, you clear the
And to
purse
dump
out.
it. This is true. I'm driving down the freeway, oh, and I had this purse. I dumped it out, and I was passing a trucker because I just wanted to get home. And I was puking. But I got sick a lot because I was in hospitals and taking care of people and the nurses were coming and going, So I was in the context of sickness. And when it got me that one time, I was just trying to show how it was so unsettling and I couldn't find a comfort spot. I couldn't move. At a certain point, I couldn't take my head off of that floor register in the bathroom. If I moved even an inch, if I moved my eyes. So I didn't know how else to describe it. Also, if you'll notice, it's kind of like the gut, it goes from the mouth through the stomach to the gut out. And it's kind of like the way it goes. Yeah, you feel like shit. I hate that feeling. Knock on wood. Never. Okay, next. Next
Okay, yes,
picture.
the next slide. I found this. I mentioned this image before, but this was for me one of the hardest images to look at in the book, and that your mother is, I believe she's sick at this point, or it's the beginning of her illness. She's not in the hospital
Trapped.
yet. Yeah, and
She'd had a stroke.
she's there with your father, and he's playing westerns at full volume and just her looking away from the screen. Again, I just think how you just the shape, the way you draw her body and the pose, just the art of cartooning. It's just it's such a subtle moment. I think someone going through this book, they might miss this image. They might read the
Mm-hmm.
text and but when your eyes rest on it, I found this to be such a she's yeah, as you say, she's trapped with her tormentor in this moment and her looking away from the screen there, I just found this to me was one of the most powerful images in the book. And just the way you phrased it, I found incredible. So I'm
Thank
wondering
you.
when you were working on this image, Yeah, I'm just wondering what was important for you to convey here or important for you to get right.
Well, during this part of the book, I wanted to focus in on how helpless she was. And, my dad, nothing bothered him, But she was trapped. She had had that stroke, and it was hard for her to get out of that chair. She liked to listen to music. She had a whole other way that she would have lived her life had she been totally in control of it, but she wasn't. So it's the idea that age victimizes you. You do find yourself not looking the same, not having the same energy. It's like those things that, and I bring that back in that dream where she looks at her clothes and she feels young again because she's reunited with the one thing that makes her feel great, and that's to look great, and she can't seem to get there. And then that pitiful poem that she wrote, I found that in her stuff. I was cleaning her side. She had a little table at the side there. The Broken Wing, um, where she talks about how she wanted, even though she was trapped and felt like, you know, she's looking out the window here. She wants to go, and it's called The Broken Wing. If you can find it and read it.
Yeah, well, this was another hard moment in the book too. She has all these notes. She writes, which presidents are on money? Do skateboarders like art? Coffee, salad, chicken, paper towels, and then it says the broken wing, and then she's crossed out. I wanted to soar, I wanted to fly. And then at the top it says sympathy card for Bess, and the pharmacy is written down with the number for the pharmacy.
Yeah, that actually exists. And so, can you imagine how I felt to walk in and see that? I would always try to help her. I mean, I love my dad. He was a crazy guy. He was a strong man. He was not insensitive. People always say her taciturn father. He was not. He was a jokester. He was a corker, they'd call him. He was a character. He'd walk in the room. Hey, Carol, the party would start. He was just something else. And my mom used to kind of chime in, and she had agency. And I say that she lost her agency because with the stroke, she was diminished. And she'd say to me, like, I sit here and I look at that shoe out of place. And I want to get up and move it and put it where it belongs, but I just can't. And so it was like, God, she can't, because she lost that part of her brain that would have just picked that up and gone ahead. And yet when I go in her closet and say, come on, we got to clean this stuff out. You have too many shoes in here. She'd say, I don't want to. Oh, I want these gold flats. You're never going to wear these gold flats again. She'd say, you don't know. I might wear them someday. So it's like, despite all the shit, she still had hope. My parents, both of them, were amazing. They went through the Depression and the war and all of this. And when they were 65, they retired from Illinois and went down to the area where they met in Tennessee. And they wanted to kind of start over. You do that when you retire. And they bought this house, and my dad was going to fix it up. He did fix it up down in Tennessee. They had a great time. And when they arrived, they had to call somebody to get all their insurance papers figured out. And the guy walks in, he said, well, here I am. And I got to say this one thing to you. Mr. and Mrs. Tyler, you are going to die. And my dad said, what the hell are you saying? We want to live. Get out of here. And they threw this guy out because his attitude, his focus was on dying and not living.
Mm.
And so even though my mom, I show her in these difficult moments and I experienced with her difficult moments where I'd have to say, Dad, go out in the garage because Mom and I are going to watch game shows for a while because that's what she liked to do. I felt like rescuing her was part of. She said it was like a. She loved it when I came because we got to do the things that she liked to do. Because I could tell him to stand down and he would, but together he was kind of old guy with senility. Also, he wasn't exactly. He adored her and he was kind to her, but at the same time he could be a real jerk. He's a guy.
Do you, the way you drew her here, I wonder, um, did it take a few drafts to get at this? I mean, it's such a, again,
No,
it's a subtle
no,
moment.
no.
This just happened? I
I
mean,
sit
you made
down.
it.
So, I don't do pre-sketches. I sit down and I think about what am I trying to say and how can I best convey that, and then I go about the business of drawing it. Period.
This is just straight to ink, no pencils before.
Oh no, I pencil.
Okay, okay.
I pencil, but I don't fool around with sketches and then I'm going to use a light tape. None of that. It's like in this panel. I think what I had to do on this one. Sorry, I have to keep doing this.
Oh,
My
please.
stupid little phone. Yeah, in this one I had to redo some of the lettering. Um, Technical issues. Sorry.
Well, I guess yeah. I wonder in the pencil process, I mean we'll move on from this image, but I just want to ask one more question. Is it in the pencil process? Is there some trial and error just to get the? I mean, it's just to me, I don't know if other people are confused as to why I'm so hung up on this, but just just the incline of her back and her pose is
No,
yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering in the pencil phase if if it took some trial and error to get it there, but
no,
okay.
no. I know how she sat in that chair. It's burned into my mind.
Mm.
You,
Well, let
you
me.
know, stuff like that. There's so much of the 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 people and the spaces, like that lamp. It's in Fab4 Mania too. That lamp. It's in a
Mm.
lot of our. It's in my grandmother. It's in the same furniture keeps showing up. If you go back and look, you'll see. Go ahead. Go to the next one.
Let me move to the next one. I just pulled this because I thought it was a beautiful image, and you use this in the book of these strands of almost parchment or fabric where things are written on them. But I
It's
just
my
wonder if
hair.
you,
It's my ponytail.
yeah, yeah. I I wonder if you recall drawing this one. It's such a showstopper of an image, and I just, yeah, I just wonder if you remember the process of working on this, if it flowed out as naturally as the other ones. I kind of just wanted people who maybe haven't read the book to see this image because I think it's just so it's gorgeous.
Well, it. I had. You have to convey when you have to convey many fragments of language. How you do it. You can either do it this way or in this case, with the bouquet thing. I had the bouquet theme, and I'm embracing the rock, and she is the rock. Did you get that throughout the whole thing? Is that she was called Sister Rock, and she was my rock. And so I'm and in the pre-story to this, where I have to bury the dog, and I hold on to a rock.
Mm.
So there's all that. Um,
But when it starts
not
to
wanting,
rain,
yeah, not wanting to let go. So I just thought, oh, there's a lot of strands of hair on my head, and so let's just turn this into that. I'm looking closer. Um, I think I had problems with how to, like, sometimes I'll write it out. Like it says, our, our spirited conversations made the prettiest bouquets ever. I think I had to write that over. I think that one and the two other phrases below it. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll draw the commanding image because I feel like it needs to be there. It brings a different. You have a different time spent. I'm gonna spend different time on this one than if I'm just reading across. And I do that throughout all of my. It was in Soldier's Heart and everything. You either want the reader to speed along because the action is going, or on this one it was trying to hold that moment of all those thoughts, all those ridiculous things we were, things you'd say on the phone, things you'd say in person. Did you hear from that guy? Whatever happened. And this is just, not profundities, but that's what a relationship with anybody you care about, really, your sister, anybody, your brother. It's never profound. It's just life. You just talk,
Yeah.
shoot the shit, or whatever you want to say. Uh, and it's that stuff that's we don't elevate that I found I was missing. Not the moment where she gets her certificate, but the moment where I can say, wow, did you see that thing? God, I hated that, or whatever. I wonder if that guy's going to win. Whatever I wrote that, I don't remember, but it was all meant to be. Um, the dog doesn't knock me. It was all meant to be just the plain old stuff that bonds us, really. That I was trying to elevate it in beauty here
Mhm.
with this presence.
I'm going to show you one more image and then I have some more direct questions. So I'm just going to ask
Okay,
you to
sit down
make commentary on one more image.
down to it.
This one, which I
Oh,
found to be another just another hard image in the book. I mean, it is for people who haven't read it, it is a hard, I mean, I tend to work that 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 might be called depressing. I often find exhilarating to read. But I'm sure for some people this is it's there's so much humor in it. It is a comic, as I think was your intent. But there's some of the images in it for me were they're very affecting, and I wonder if I could ask you to respond to this one.
well, there's a couple of places in the book where I just totally don't have clothes on. When I'm the granny sitting there protecting the ladies in the cabin, when my sister's sick and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do, and I got a shotgun and I'm being a granny and I don't got no clothes on there. And I got no clothes on here. A couple of places I strip it down or whatever because I'm trying to get to the being, the essence of being, the person. So in this case, uh, the tree. I'm having to be careful because Doggy here might knock this whole rig over that I got set up.
Uh-oh.
Sit down. Um, I wanted to show like an X-ray on what the heck was really going on. I had arthritis. All my joints were aching. There was different things were happening, and these were the uh, consequences of the situation. So if you think about medicine, you go into the doctor's office. They've seen everybody under the sun. I don't care what you look like. Just come on, lady, we got to do it, and just uh, if you don't mind, put this gown on. And then they come in and they're just gonna take it off and they're gonna check you and everything.
They've seen
So
it all.
it's like they've seen it all. And in this case, I thought the tree had said to me, I was explaining to a big tree, I can do this, I can do this, I can't do this. Here's what happened. And so the big tree says, stand behind me and we'll take a look. And the tree becomes this X-ray machine.
Mm,
So there it is, everything there. And I think at first, when I first made this image, I made it upside down. Then I thought, if I present it upside down, it's going to be read like I'm hanging from a tree. I don't want the association that way.
right.
You have to be very intentional with everything because somebody who gets out of your control or reading it, they're going to say, well, I thought that was this or that. So mostly what I try to do is uh, take a step and think, well, if I do it this way, I flipped it around from upside down. It just wasn't working. Being upside down overrode what I was trying to communicate. So it's like, well, then just put it this way. It's the best thing right here. Just lean up against the tree. It worked. And in this one, I really worked on. Um, I did a lot of the book, and then I uh, decided to re-letter the whole thing. And this was my first that panel. It's like, get nice, get better with your lettering. So I really committed to doing better lettering. And this is one of the first things where I realized all of my training of being a Catholic girl and knowing how to handwrite good and stuff like that. I could go ahead and do that. I figured finally found the right tools that could help me do that, and it worked out. I love doing that now. And it helped the the big letters C and the things that I started doing, this the flourishes and all of that came from embracing the handwriting script and all of that.
The lettering is, yeah, the lettering is beautiful throughout. I want to show you this image now and ask you a more direct question. This is you confronting someone in the book, and if people haven't read it and you don't want anything spoiled, although it's not really that kind of book, although it is in a way. I mean, there's events that are surprises within the narrative, but towards the end of the book, and if you don't want the work spoiled, maybe turn the sound off for a moment. Your daughter with her boyfriend is going through this very intense and very sad moment of being extorted by someone else that your daughter's boyfriend was a drug addict and there's this huge conflict that happens and you in this scene you get on the phone with this person that's extorting her and you really don't take any nonsense. You really take control of this situation, despite and at the time your sister is dying, and you as a character in this book are you're such a force, and I don't know if this question will make sense. I hope it does, but I wonder if you can look at yourself as a character in this book and how you would respond to yourself as a character. I mean, I your work is autobiographical and true, and I trust all these events. I don't like the portrait of you. Are you trying to phrase yourself in a specific way and come up like did you take some liberties to say in this book I am this I'm experiencing this pain, but I'm also capable, and I'm gonna have myself be the capable center and nurture. I just kind of, I mean, maybe this is too abstract, but I just wonder how you respond to yourself as a character because truly you are the I would say the hero of this book, and
It's
you
fun.
appear in it throughout. So I don't know. I wonder if you have a response to you as a character in it.
Well, I don't like the idea of what am I trying to say? Because I thought what happened was so shocking, and I remember that so clearly, having to stand up to this guy and come up with that, and that I felt. I This is so true. I couldn't get any help. No, who was going to help me confront this guy? And why was this happening? And I understood the street nonsense, because I've been the pregnant lady, like I described in the book. But in terms of being a character, I've I've used to being a character because I'm telling the stories through Soldier's Heart and this one.
Yeah.
And so what I did with this one is it's like, okay, I'll just tell you, I'm going to tell it like it is. This is what happened. But I also felt like a lot of what, a lot of caregiving, a lot of stepping up, a lot of life is you have to do things that are horrible and you don't get credit. They'll show people on TV. The boy stamped out a. It would have been a very bad dumpster fire if the boy hadn't called us. We're going to give him a medal from the city of something or other. Well, I knew I'm not going to get a medal for standing down this guy, um, or kicking this other guy, or just what. But yet heroic, and it was heroic. I mean, it was scared. It scared me to death. It was the most obscene thing I ever. It's like I literally, with the shoulder pads and all that, I literally had to stare this guy down, and I picked that spot because I knew the cops would be there at 8 o'clock for shift change. So that's why I set it up that I'd meet him there. And I know that guy, the other guy, had guns. It was just like, when I think back, it's like, what was I thinking? But
Yeah,
at
I
the
think when you
time,
when you read that section, it's kind of the action you take is, you acknowledge in it how difficult it is, but you do assert yourself pretty quickly, and yeah, I mean you make the
What else
decision
can
to
I
yeah
do? It's
yeah
almost like the chutzpah of being a teacher and a mom and all that stuff came to the fore. I just made up some shit on the list. He had to sign it, and he was like, he complied. I was so surprised. I was surprised he agreed to anything. Look, I'm only going to give you this amount. I thought, what do I have to lose? This guy is like he's cuckoo. And the fact that he agreed and the way I had to go about it, talking about his son and all that stuff. Oh my God. Or just anything in there, anything in this book that I had to face and deal with. And I say at the end, I had to do all these things. And I list at the very end of the book to Mr. Uh, Hourglass Man, who goes at me. You remember that? I
yeah
can't believe all the things I've had to do. Remember,
yeah.
I'm saying to Mr. Hourglass.
Well, I wonder, is it in a way like, I mean, I didn't think of this while I was reading it, but maybe just now, I mean, maybe doing the book is a way, and doing it with the weight that you give it is a way to truly, that story where you're saying a boy who calls the police to prevent a building from burning down, he gets some credit. I mean, in a way, did you think of this book as making a record of what you went through and also showing what you did that deserves credit? I mean,
No, I'm not doing it for that. I did it because I wanted to say that um, having to do all the unpleasant things, maybe it was because I was now alone because everybody died. And that
mm,
when you're in a family group, that people can bear the weight of all of us. It's our community. But now that they're dropping off, it's up to me,
right.
you know. So it just reinforced the idea of the aloneness when you lose everybody.
I have for my slides I have about three more questions. So if you want to ask a question of Carol, I would put your questions in the chat now so that I can get to them. I'm just gonna get to the end of my questions.
Okay.
I wanted to show this image. Where are we? Um, you said earlier in this interview that,
Oh,
your
yeah, there it
your
is.
your father was not insensitive, that it's
No.
a complicated thing. Um, Someone might read through this work and witness your father's behavior, witness your daughter's boyfriend's behavior, the person that's extorting her, some of Justin's behavior, and there's you show Justin doing some very kind things, but also some insensitive things, and there does seem to be someone could write a review of this and say the men in this work come across almost and your sister's husband, who
This
is
is true.
maybe the cruelest character in the book, or the hardest one for me when I was reading it to witness his behavior. So, you also say at points in the book that your father is, you explain that he loved her, and you've said that in this interview. But yeah, I wonder. I mean, there does seem to be a pretty stark gender divide of. I mean, it just I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't so
Yeah.
apparent in the drama of the book. I mean, your friend Rose is someone who's very kind to you. Your sister, you have a connection with her, but it's almost every male character in the book really is if not in the way, they're definitely not an aid.
Well, I mean, Chuck and Harry both were ass pains during all this because I think it triggered. But because of a way a person behaves is not who they are,
Right.
right? So I may have to show my dad being a jerk and watching his stuff. Um, it was his way of dealing with the anxieties. He's an old guy. And I don't, he did a lot of great things, but I don't show him driving himself to the VA 2 days before he died. I don't show a lot of that stuff because it wasn't necessary for what I needed to say and do in the story at that point. Oh, we got a dog problem. Harry, downright jerk, and he can live that in this book because he was terrible. Oh, 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 he was terrible, and he gave my sister a hard time. Um, yeah, I do talk about guys that way, but it's unfortunate that they misbehaved during a time when maybe they could have been more gentlemanlike.
Yeah, it's that thought definitely came
But
to
not
mind.
everybody can, and I wasn't kind either. I had no use for Harry, um, and there's people I left out in my family who misbehaved because I didn't want to cause further hurt because they were younger. So I just let that go. And sometimes people need to grow through an experience. They're not ready yet. And so, it was like, fair game, Harry, you are, because, oh no. What are you doing? Okay, there you go. Oh, 15-year-old dog. Yeah, so they misbehaved, and I caught what I could of that. I how could I change the lady who didn't take care of her dog? That's a lady.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
I
she
don't,
and
I'm not trying to look for that being, I
I
don't think
love
that's
men.
the message of the book, but I
No,
just
I
did,
love men, but at
yeah.
that time, the men I had, the operational was, dad was old and losing it. He was dementia, and that's why he he had really bad tinnitus, and he had the TV loud to drown that out. Okay. Um, but still, it triggered my mom dying and getting sick and dying, triggered memories from when his own mother died.
Mm.
And it was a bad, bad thing that happened in the family. So that's why he was accusing me of taking furniture and being stuff because he was going through that trigger. Um, so yeah, and the guy across, I'm sorry, but yeah, those guys were all jerks. The addict, the extortionist, all of that chain of fools. They were all bad.
Well,
And
speaking of,
Justin,
oh,
bless his heart, he was being Justin.
well, yeah, we've seen, I mean, yeah, we've seen him as a character in Soldier's Heart as well.
Guess what, Justin lovers? The second book is mostly Justin.
Oh, well, I have a question about that yeah, that'll be, are you working on that now? The follow-up to this?
I mean, I'm on it, but I'm not.
We'll
What
get to that. We'll
lot
get to
of
that.
work? What?
I, I I actually was curious asking you when, because well, as I was reading this, I thought about, here talking about tinnitus. You talk about trying to replace the tinnitus with Bach and the Beatles, and I was kind of wondering if your Beatles book was drawn maybe in a response, because that I think from you that's one of your maybe a sweeter, there's it's a more carefree book, maybe is the best thing
It's
to say.
fun. It's just
Yeah,
adorable. I love it. Everybody loves it because it was all fun. It's
yeah.
fun, and I did that literally did that after my mom and my sister died. I kind of started it as a blog, and then when my dad died, it's like I went ahead and pulled it together, and it came out in 2018. So truly, I went to Beatlemania again because I found my box of stuff at my parents' house, and I had all that material. But putting that together was a welcome relief from all the like dreadful stuff I'd gone through. Um, and putting that out there. But then the whole time I did that, I was on the site. Yeah, I was working on. I gotta tell this story, but first we're gonna have some fun with music and the Fabs. I love all that. Um,
That's what I thought. That's kind of what I thought. I didn't know that when the book came out, but reading this book, I was like, oh, maybe that's a little bit why.
I needed that. My spirit needed that. But it was more of a, it was amazingly easy. Why?
Mm,
Because I could be 13, so it just was there. And looking back on all that, it all came back. The music and the book came together magically. I had enough songs to cover every chapter. It just all was. It was just such a blast. It was so much fun. And I met a lot of people in the Beatles community, the Beatles fan community, who I've been on podcasts with guys who have podcasts about the Beatles, and I met the one of the women who was at the Ed Sullivan show. She was on the show, and other women who wrote books about the Beatles. Other guys, yeah, it's just been like it's a thrill. But I, at the same time, I could not pursue that on the circuit of book signing or anything like that. People were like, "Man, I like the Beatles. I'm not going to read it." So it's like, well, you're missing out on a lot of joy because it's just thrilling, and it really encapsulates. We're taking off to the Beatles here for a minute. It really does talk about a place and a time that existed and is gone. And it's
mm.
Chicago in the 60s, mid 60s, and the whole Beatlemania phenomenon. And people have said there's not a book out there. Your book captures Beatlemania in America better than any book that's out there. And it's because I had primary materials, you know. I had primary sources. I kept notes. I took notes. I've taken
Yeah.
notes my whole life. Oh, where are you going, dog?
Well, let me ask one. I have one more slide pulled up.
Okay.
And for people who haven't read the book, this is on the final page of the graphic novel. So please, if you don't want anything spoiled, although again, it's not really a book that can be spoiled, but if you want to come to the final page in your own way,
Let me
maybe
say this before you say that.
yes.
Anybody who's hesitant, I don't want to read a book about death, just remind them there's a lot of beauty in there and there's a lot of fun. It's fun to
Yes.
look at, it's
No.
fun to read, and if you're just going to get creeped out, then just trip on how beautiful the lettering is because I really did try hard. Go ahead.
No, there's a lot of pleasure to be had in
There's
this book.
jokes. I even
Yes,
made
there's
secret inside jokes that you can find.
um this is the final page,
Yeah,
and you say, where do I go from here?
that's right.
Now we know there's another book coming that is because I think in the process of making this is when you were working on it, is it when Justin passed away? Um and
Yeah,
the
well, uh, I was about 9/10 of the way done when he died. So I
okay.
didn't want to just add a chapter. And this is a hint towards that. But it's also what precedes this is an image where I'm we got these the thorns that you see on the front of the book. The thorns are in my eyes. I cannot cry because tears of grief have a molecular structure that makes them painful to come out.
Here's the cover of the book.
Yeah. So
Uh,
here's the thing. She's looking at the impossible trident. The impossible trident. To me, when I started, I thought that's that funny thing from Mad Magazine, and I love that. That stupid thing we used to draw when I was in school and everything, and it doesn't make any sense. And I liked it that it was devoid of meaning. So I used that. It's modeled after the whole cover is modeled after Woman with Plants by Grant Wood, which is one of my favorite
oh, wow.
paintings.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
She's holding the woman in his painting is holding a clay pot, and there's some plants, some mother-in-law's tongues, and she has something weird going on with her eyes, cataracts. So in
Mm.
this case, what's weird going on with my eyes is that I'm crying out painful tears, or painful tears are painful, things that are coming out are painful. And that thing in the book, those impossible tridents appear in the book in Griefville as ways, since they're devoid of meaning, all they can really do is help uh, aid in comfort because they really are not bringing baggage, right? So they appear throughout
Yeah, it's a
in the
constant.
skies and stuff like that. So they're a benign presence. So if they're not going to make me happy or sad, and that's kind of a state you want to be in when you're in meditation, and this is also a meditation gaze. The context there and the background and all that stuff. Those are just, it's kind of a night scene and stuff like that. And uh, I wondered about using this image because I thought people are going to go, oh, it looks so terrible. But if you know it and you understand it, it's really intriguing. It's more of an intrigue.
It's a
So that
beautiful book.
last
Very
picture
striking.
that you showed, and I'm saying I don't know where to go from here, is really the launch pad for the second book.
Mm. Here, I'm trying to call it up again. Sorry.
Oh,
Let
that's
me,
that pretty bird.
yeah,
Oh,
let
by
me,
the way, those the bush and the bird on the inside cover is from Pompeii, the ultimate graveyard. Okay,
here's this final image again.
yeah. So it says, what does it say? Where do I go from here?
Yes, and that's the
Um,
final.
it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with life or death or anything like that. It's like there is something coming, and I have to discover it, and then I address what that is. The second book starts right here. Verdante starts right here.
Mm. Well,
So
actually,
I
I
mean,
should say the final images are truly, if we're being accurate, we have where do I go from here? And then we turn the page and there's elements from nature. And then
oh,
here's
that's
this
because in the front, look in the
beautiful
front,
detail.
and
Yeah.
the tree. Because in the front, when you open it up, there's a bird in the bushes, and then there's one of those mitigator bovines over there by the tree. So that the living things are gone at the end, and it's daylight. This is dark.
I'll just speak so that the camera goes on me so I can show these. But
Okay,
yes, this is the front of the book.
yeah,
This is an image, and then
from
this image,
Pompeii. That's from Pompeii, and that's from my mind.
and then the book closes, and we have this image,
No bird, no
and then
cow.
this image.
Right.
So that's the true ending. Are you, yeah, so but that image of you saying, where do I go from here? That's where the follow-up will begin, and that's what you're
That's the
working on.
first page of the second book.
Okay.
Where do I go from here? She doesn't say that, but it's like, I'm not going to start that, but it's, you're going to be surprised. People are going to be surprised because, I mean, it's not like, it's like I know what I want to do. I know what the second book is. It's complete in my mind. I've got my ending. I've got the hooks. I've got this, and that. And now I get to play with it. So it's still about, loss and stuff. I gotta lose Justin, but it's also asking, it's probably more gut wrenching personally. It is more gut wrenching personally. I think at one point I say I thought I understood death, but that everything I already talked about is just cotton candy.
Oh, everything that's talked about in this book is cotton candy compared to what comes in the next. Well, I'm going to
But it's gonna all be good. I mean, I don't want people to think it's so funny. I'm not. This is not therapy, and I'm not depressed. Somebody said, "Well, you must have done that for your own more." It's like, no, shit. I'm a storyteller. You want to read the book? Okay, you like it. I was upset at the Library Association. I'm going to go ahead and say this. Somebody right away reviewed the book from the American Library Association, and they said that the one black person I had in the book was so stereotypically presented, and it was that character Clorette who says you got to go up there. Go up there and find out about yourself. I don't know nothing about Tooks, and you can't find the book. You know that Clorin,
Yeah.
that girl. I love her. And I thought this lady didn't read the book because I think what she did was got a PDF and scanned it.
Yeah.
And some people just read the front, or they're going to read this part. They're not going to read the book because if you read the book, you realize that is just so not true, so not fair. And
Yeah.
so,
Not true at all.
if somebody says this is a sad book, this is a dour book, I don't think it is. I think it's an interesting read. You know, there's a lot going on. There's fun things, and there's sadnesses, there's slow moments, there's quick moments, but you definitely get your money's worth.
It's the reviews I'd heard of it prior to reading. I do think it is a hard book. There's moments in it that are affecting and I think very very tragic, but it does not sync up with the reviews that I read of it in that it is not a hopeless book in any
No,
way. I would say anything but. And it's a very, I think I maybe described you as a character as heroic before, but I'd say resilient might be a better
yeah, I think
word.
resilient. Yeah,
Yeah.
somehow you have to get through. I think that there was a strength. It brought up a strength I didn't know I had, but so did motherhood. Oh God.
I I think people might think of it as darker than it is because I think memoirs that deal with tragic things in publishing now tend to want an epiphany or solution to tie everything together at the end. And you don't do that in this book. I think that's why it's a mature work of art and not a one that will come and go. You go through things and you confront things and there's change, but there's no solution at the end. So we have to sit with what you portray. And I think some people might just say, well, that's dark. There's no scene at the end where you've gotten over things exactly.
I'm happy again. I'm going on
Yeah,
a cruise.
yeah, exactly.
Fuck that. No, I wouldn't do that. I heard a terrible thing the other day that some people live on cruise ships in their retirement. They just live on them. Okay, enough of that. No, there's no, because that's not life. That's not realistic to what. Remember, I talked about my Buddhist teachings and the things I realized that I mean, I knew this. I think I was born that way. I just knew from the beginning that things, there was an official narrative, there's official things, and then there's what you experience, and that it doesn't always add up. It's not the same, or that things are not always. They're difficult. There's no easy answer. And like I said earlier, Kubler Ross, yeah, she came up with the five things. But come on, that can't serve all the needs. No one thing can serve all the needs. I've been in a grocery store lately. There's so many brands of cereal. I mean, people have preferences.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's many kinds of
Humanity
cereal,
is
there's got to be.
multiple. Yeah, there's very multiple everything going on. You know,
I'm going to ask you a question from a great cartoonist, Arsa Koryak. And Bob, do you want to read this question? Or do you want me to read it for you?
Oh no, sure. I'd love to jump in. Hi, Carol. Great to see you.
hi, hi.
Um, I just I can't resist this opportunity. We're seeing your studio, and there's a drawing right behind you. Can you hold it up and just talk about it a little
This
bit?
one,
I'd love to sort of. Yeah, I don't even know what it is. It's just right there, and you could hold it in your hand, and I'd love to hear about it a little bit, just to get a little
this
bit of a
guy.
process. Yeah, sure.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is a kettle of inspiration. Remember my show I had at Billy Ireland? I came up with a kettle of inspiration, and we built it three-dimensional in the central motif. It meant to cover a pole. But this kettle says to me, where's the other one? I'm just playing around. These are just goofing off. This says, ah, sorry. This is, this kettle says, wake up, it's your big day. And this plant says, brightly up, get you, hey, up. And I'm sleeping there. And then this kettle says, wake up to these thoughts. The fair, the carnival, circus. And I'm thinking, you mean amusements as in festival, fun, rodeo, picnic? Oh, I like these thoughts. These are welcome departure from the dour and the grim. This is just, I'm halfway flirting with an interim book. I'm doing the Justin book, but I thought I've got things that don't quite fit or that are inspiration pieces. That's what this is. Just this, I'm adding color as I go. And it's got some more pages to it. And there's some pages somewhere, I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't quite know what to do. The map, for example. If you haven't gotten a hold of a refill map, I made these, and I have some available. I still have some available. And then on the back, there's this wacky calendar with weird months. Like right now, we're leaving. We had January, and now we're in February, and we're getting ready for Marchard down here. And this is something that Chlorette, the chlorine that I mentioned earlier, who was much maligned by the reviewer who did not understand. He made the map. And so on. So I play around. There's a lot of playing. Okay. You want me to read you a 2-pager real quick?
That'd be beautiful.
You want me to do that, or you want to go listen to the president yammer?
No, let's hear you read a 2-pager. That would be such a privilege.
Okay. This says, this may or may not be in the next book. I'm trying to fit it in. This is my visit to the historic old cemetery. I printed this out for something, for some reason, but my printer went crazy and then I loved it. So I'm going to use it as my title, which is odd because I never use printed anything. But that one is so goofy, I'm going to use it. But it says, you'll find cemeteries wherever people live or have lived in the past. Some are creepy and some are disheveled, but most are well kept. In my town, there is a botanical garden cemetery and arboretum that's been around since the 1840s. Spring Grove Cemetery. It's mainly notable people from history who rest there. Third largest in the United States. It's been designated a historic landmark. Never, ever forget, and he says this. This is in the book, sorry. Okay, I steered clear of the boneyards, but I felt the need one day to go look around and check this place out. It was very classy. There's all these beautiful stones and stuff. Stones and spaces, symbols, the famous weeping angel, some kind of Masonic reminders, an abundance of curves and florals and letters. Different dates, all etched in stone, forever, forever in peace. Now, if you'll notice on my originals, you're not going to see this in the book, but often I have to write words in the margins. And back in the day, we would get our bottle of cell vinyl. All you old timers know this. You could white it out and make the correction, or you'd cut a patch. Nowadays, I write the bad word or figure out, I usually put a dot on the side where I've made a mistake. And then I'll know that the word on the bottom, I have to replace it with Photoshop. Okay. So one of these words has to be replaced. Okay. Remember, it's the visit to the old historic cemetery. On most days, it's common to see people getting their exercise, walking through this prosperous, well-designed urban burial ground like it's a park. I find it strange. Why not just go to the park? Why walk amongst the corpses of history? The response is usually that it's such a beautiful landscape, why not? And I'm looking at this guy saying, shouldn't judge, but this guy's really enjoying his walk through the park, and here's like mausoleums and stuff. How can anyone just deny the reality of this place? Just beneath the surface is 6 Feet Under Club. 6 feet under. All right. And even though I felt a compulsion to come see the artfulness and beauty, it wasn't long till I started to realize that the little Louisa was below me with her little pinafore, having tragically succumbed to diphtheria at age 4 in 1872. Or that stone there marks where 54-year-old Gerald was laid to rest, looking younger than ever before in his 3-piece wool suit. A retaining wall fell on him in 1936, and so his widow paid all she had for a lead-lined cemetery vault. Gerald, paying extra for perpetual care. This left her penniless. When her time came, they laid dear Ida in a simple grave over in the city cemetery because it was the height of the Depression. She spent all her money on her husband and had to go to the pauper's grave. These are common stories. Every corpse dressed to suit the occasion and reflect their era. No stone for the destitute, childless Ida. I may have said this before, but I will repeat. Entering and leaving this world both involve pain. So we should strive to make the in-between sweet. I get the importance of dignity in the burial, but no matter what fragrance the mind conjures to poetically express the gravity of grief, or how skillfully a creative hand bestows timeless forms of everlasting beauty, I cannot unsee what my mind knows in a place like this, and I care not to think about death and burial any more than I need to, and so I am out of here. Get out of that.
That was beautiful. That's what a privilege to get to hear that, Carol. That was incredible. Thank you for reading that.
Okay.
Can I have another audience. Did Bob, did you want to ask a follow-up, or
Oh, that
thank you
was
for asking something that led to that?
I'm sorry that it didn't look. I'm jumbling it around and
no,
something.
that was more than I
Trust,
hoped for, Carol. I loved seeing the whole
trust me.
process. Thank you.
Trust me. Okay.
I'm going to read a question from Generoso Fiero, and he says, thanks so much, Carol. Jack Kerouac was raised Catholic and dealt with death through that faith, and like you, embraced Buddhism later in his life. Still, he wrote that Catholicism tinged everything, especially his writing. Is that the same for you as well?
Yeah, I was thinking today about my Catholicism, my Catholic background, and I think I was shaped by Catholicism. I was a good Catholic girl, all the basic things. I went back and recently, and because I watched the monks walk across the country to DC. I followed that because I knew all of that Theravada tradition. I knew what those guys were about. It was fun to see, fun to watch. I thought, I need to go back and reread my 5 lifetime precepts. What did that mean? And when I read them, I thought this is basically basic 101 on how to be a good human being that I learned in Catholic school. You don't steal, you don't harm other people, basically be a good person, and don't kill, don't steal, don't drink to intoxication, watch what comes out of your mouth. I didn't stay with Catholicism because I felt like after Vatican II, things changed. And I didn't like it that they never really embraced the ordination of women. My sister, if anybody should have been a nun or been a priest, it would have been my sister. She was a nun, but she got in there so much, and her whole life was. And she had Harry and her daughter with autism, and she says, "This is my mission. This is my destiny." To take care of them, to help them to become better, to help them with better lives. And I think about, okay, what being a Catholic did beyond, understanding all the rituals and doing all that stuff was the basic core. I went to very good schools who taught me. My Catholic education was fantastic. In elementary school, it was like managing your we would do our homework, but then we'd put them in booklets. So I was always making booklets in elementary school. So it was like comic books, but they were achievement books. With, look, I got all high scores on my arithmetic lessons. In high school, we learned about comparative religions. We were encouraged to go to other churches and see how other people. So they didn't say Catholic only. So I had a liberal arts education. I went to college. I went to Middle Tennessee State, and I went to Syracuse. But the Catholic thing, I can't go back to Catholic. I'm not going to go back to Catholic, but I do think it shaped me. It's the original faith encounter. I still pop into a Catholic church now and then when there's no mass, because I like the spectacular quiet and sense of what do you call that word? I can't think of the right word. Where you're it's just a sacred sense of the sacred. And I still will go into if a church is on fire. This is a good Catholic kid. If the church is burning and I'm walking by and the church is on fire, yes, I need to go in and save the host out of the tabernacle, and then ask for absolution because I touched it. Yeah, I still do. I still have the thought. Justin and I used to always have jokes about it. It's like, no Catholic church burning today, Justin. You won't have to go save a host. You had to have been raised Catholic to get that one. It's okay, it's Friday. We can have a hot dog anyway. They made that. He'd say, like, we can't do that. I said, we can do that. We're allowed now. We can have a hot dog on Friday if you want. We'd go to fish fry and make jokes about it. We did. We'd go to fish fries. So we did some Catholic stuff together just because we had that in common.
Well, you've been so gracious with your time. We've had you here for close to 2 hours. I'm going to end with this question from the audience, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
I had such a pleasure reading this book, and I'm really grateful how generous you were with not just your time, but with your answers. And I have a question from Mackay and then a question from Kevin Pyle. And
Okay.
they
I'll make it quick.
yes, they ask, Mackay says that he's, or they are in Seattle, the home of Fantagraphics. And do you plan to come for a visit to Seattle? And then Kevin asks, will you be doing any events in New York City? Just to read. I mean, it was such a pleasure having you read that work. Do you have any, maybe for the next book, a tour planned, or to do maybe a summer tour for this book?
I gotta get this done. I'm 74 and my mind is going, so I've got to get my second book done before I can do any kind of party. And I'm not going to Seattle. Them Seahawks. I'm a Bengals fan.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything planned. Well, it's going crazy. Going to San Diego this year because I'm being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, well, that's as it should be. Congratulations, Carol.
Thank you. And I'm happy because I will be there with Justin. He was inducted in 23, so that's be a happy space for me to live in with him. another masterpiece.
That would be a good Eisner ceremony to go to
Oh,
see
there's
Carol
places I
Tyler.
want to go to, but I'm a dog mom and she's 15, and oh gosh, it's hard for me to get away. And really, I mean that. If I don't get this book done, I'm just gonna. I have to do it now.
Well, can we
Can't do it.
ask when that book? Sorry, your audio cut. Can we ask when that book will come? Like when you
I
think it
said
might come out?
no. Around. I can't fuck around. Go ahead. When?
Yeah, just out of curiosity. It says in the intro to the book that this part comes out in 2025 and the next one will come out in a couple of years. But I guess I can ask you when you think it'll come out. We'll be happy whenever it arrives. We need to
It,
process this one first.
I mean, I've got a stack of work that's done, a stack of pages. A lot of it, not a lot of it. I know exactly how it works. I know how to do it. I have to just do it. And then that takes like sit down and do it. And you have to have a mental state, and everything has to align. I've got the old dog. She's very, very, she's in hospice basically. It's hospice care with her. They gave her 4 days to live back in August.
Mm.
And I have managed to keep her going through change of diet. I had to build a special thing for the staircase so that she can. Um, I have a trolley. I got a boat hoist so I can roll up the thing to get her up and down the stairs. I built a thing out in the backyard so she can go outside and not get wet. So I mean, I have had made accommodations for her, um, and now we're just doing the best we can. Every day with her is a blessing, and I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just going to see what happens. Pretty soon I'll be going out to the farm during the summer, hang out there, and I can work out there. But the thing you're asking is, I have to put this now in gear. The gear being get the pages done.
Yeah.
I got it written. It's written in my head. I finally figured out the beginning correctly in order of things. And so putting that thing together is just a matter of sitting down and making the pages happen, which once I get to this point, it's like I can probably do a page a week at least, but that's 365 days. But life doesn't work like that, because I could do a page a week. Is what, 52 a week? But I might be able to get 2 pages done, or 3, or 1. Um, so I just do the best I can. I'm kind of like just in implementation mode, and I will work as fast as I can, but I'm not going to cut corners or do anything, just to get the book done. It's just a matter of the life distractions.
Well, I think I can say everyone that is a fan of your work or might just be coming to your work with this book will be eternally grateful when when the book arrives, whenever it does. Whenever it's I think books being finished for deadlines or festivals is never makes sense. They're finished when they're done, So we'll
No,
be
I don't can't think about that. I'd
yeah,
love to go to New York, but somebody just have to come here and help me get out of the house.
right.
Put me up in a hotel. There's things like it's life's different without Justin. It's much more complicated. Getting out the door is more complicated.
Well, I want to read you just as we say goodbye. I'd like to read you some very nice things that people have said here in the
Okay,
chat.
I
Deb
can't
says,
see.
well, I'm going to read them to you. Dan Theodore says, Carol, thank you for sharing with us. Deb Luque says, thank you, Carol. So happy. There's a great cartoonist in Cincinnati, my hometown. The Spring Grove piece was lovely. Randy Globo says, thank you so much. I loved hearing you speak. Oh, now more people are commenting. I love hearing you speak about your wonderful book. It really spoke to me. Bruce Chrislip says, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mackay says, thank you, Carol. Chris Silla, a brilliant cartoonist, says, thank you for this, Carol. You are amazing. Joe O says, thank you, thanks, Carol. Danny Fingeroth, one of our co-curators of this season, says, thank you, Carol. Jenna Rosso, who asked the question about Catholicism says, I so much feel your answer to my question, Carol. Thank you very much. I just want to get to all of these. Um, Kevin Pyle says he loves the map that you showed. Kelly Fra, a great cartoonist, says, love to Carol and thanks for yet another masterpiece. Looking forward to book two. Scott Spencer says that he really admires your drawing, the darks and hatching, so much care. Creota Bilberg wanted to say that she was really enjoying the discussion. Another great cartoonist, Creota Wilberg, that she had to leave early and she wanted to make sure that she apologized to you and thanks you for this. And then there's some Dan Theodore says, Carol, thank you for sharing with us. And R. Sikoriak, we'll end with his comment. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Carol. And I thank you too,
Okay.
Carol. This was
And
beautiful.
thank you, Austin. You've led this conversation so beautifully.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And
So thoughtful.
it was a pleasure to do because I truly, truly love this book. And if you have not read this book, if you're watching this event live or you're watching it on YouTube, you got to go out and get it. You'd be crazy not to.
And if you want a map, you got to hit me up. I do
What's
have some
where would people
actual
get that
maps.
map? Is there a website?
You just have to see, how did we do that before? Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You send me a message with your address. There's $30.
And your
I
Instagram
think
is
they're $30, 35 or something with what do you call that? Postage. Duh.
I have your Instagram here. Let me see what it is.
Did
It's
I say that?
no, you said that if someone writes to you on Instagram.
Just message me. Give you.
Yeah.
And we're gonna see that you get one of these maps.
It's at Carol Tyler Comics, and that's comics with an X. That's Carol's Instagram.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Carol. This was beautiful. And this will be on YouTube in a couple of days. And oh,
Oops.
that's a
No.
great ending. And for fans of the symposium, come back next week. Danny Fingeroth is doing our yearly Will Eisner Week, which is very important to what the symposium does and what it stands for. So thank you for this, Carol. Everybody come back next week. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time and for making this book. And thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Austin. You're the best. Thank you.
Bye, Carol, and bye,
Bye bye.
everyone.
Bye bye. Bye everybody. Now we got to get this thing trying to get the glass.